Hello there fellow model makers, and welcome to the second part of my first ever diorama build. We started our build with this 148 scale Tamiya Early Tiger, and last time we completed most of the build. Time to put some color on this tank, and I start by priming the tank with this Tamiya Fine Surface Primer. So here we have it, a nicely primed tank. I will be using these three colors: German Grey, XF63, Neutral Grey, XF53, and Light Grey, XF66. I start with the darkest color, German Grey, XF63. Don't forget the parts on the sprue, which is something I do regularly. Next, I use a mix of German and neutral grey for some subtle highlights. A few drops of light grey are mixed with the German grey and some more highlights are added, this time more visible. With the base coat applied, time to hand paint some details on the tank, starting with the tools. Once again, let's not forget the parts on the sprue. At this point, I decided to paint the tracks black while they were still on the sprue. However, I gave up after some time, thinking that they would anyway need to be painted once they were glued in. So I was left with half-painted tracks. I now clean up the hand-painted parts by applying some German grey wherever I messed up the paint job. The exhausts are painted rust color. The kit comes with a few decals, which are now fixed in place. I usually give the kit a coat of varnish before applying the decals, but in this case, there were very few decals and they were very small, so I did without the coat of varnish. I will now do some chipping. I will start with some of this Tamiya X20A thinner. As you know, I have applied lighter layers of paint on top of the dark German grey. I will now gently chip away at this top layer to produce some natural looking chipping. But I must be very careful while doing this. There is a possibility that I can remove the entire top layer of light paint, or worse yet, I could chip through both layers of paint and expose the plastic. So, very gently. The result may be very subtle, but it does look good. Just make sure you give the kit ample time to dry after this procedure. Now for some obvious chipping with a mix of German and light grey. I use a fine brush and make chips along the exposed edges of the tank. Just about anywhere where I think the paint would be exposed to wear and tear. Next, I add to the chipping, using a sponge dipped in the same paint. Just make sure you have dabbed off most of the paint from the sponge. We want tiny chips, not huge blotches of paint. Now, with a fine tip brush, I paint rust color inside the bigger, lighter colored chips to represent areas where the rusting is showing through. With all these techniques, I have a tendency of really overdoing them. So I have to keep reminding myself of the scale I'm working in and try to keep the effects in scale. Right, time now to add some light dust to the lower edges of the vehicle. I am using highly diluted sand yellow by MIG. This represents finer dust that settles onto the paint and gives it a yellowish tint. And here's another time-consuming part of the build, painting the road wheels. I'm using Tamiya's Rubber Black XF85. Time to add some streaks with AK Interactive's Streaking Grime for Panzer Grey. I will mostly build on the spots where I have already added rust chipping. I do this to show that some rust leakage has taken place. I make little dots of the grime and let them dry. Now, using a brush dipped in odorless spirit, I gently pull at these spots. The first few pulls reactivate the grime, and the next pulls it down. If you do this while the grime is still wet, it's possible that you will wipe all of it away. Also, one too many pulls with the odorless spirit and once again you may lose all the grime. Now let's make the dark black metallic parts a little more metallic by giving them a rub with MIG's gunmetal pigment. I also rub the pigment along the edges of the kit. This also gives a very subtle and nice effect. Right folks, that about does it for the painting of this kit and also for this edition of the build. Next time, we will add some mud to the tank and a few crew members. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do like and subscribe. Till next time, good luck and happy modeling.